I am in front of my bookcase and I wanted to do something different today because I am a reader. These are all my nonfiction business books, and I wanted to go through and pick out some of the books that I would recommend if you were starting, scaling, you're an entrepreneur, have an entrepreneurial mindset. I am not going to do a formal book tour because this changes. I'm just going to start picking these for you and showing you. I want to start in this top right corner, and my favorite books are right here. This is Ryan Holiday, and there are a couple of books right here that I would recommend, and I have 2 copies of this. So the first one is Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. This one is signed. Why do I recommend this book for entrepreneurs? Because this talks about discipline from another perspective than the Jocko Williams perspective of things. This talks more about doing the things you're supposed to be doing because you have a dream and you have a bigger vision. And as an entrepreneur, sometimes it can be really freaking hard. I love when I still have stuff stuck to it. This is Range. I read this one actually on the plane coming home from a retreat. And the reason why I recommend this is this one actually talks about being an entrepreneur. You have to have a hobby. There's not a picture in here, but this one talks about your range as an entrepreneur is going to matter, and a lot of people want to go really deep in their topic. And as someone who has been in sales for 12 years, yes, it is really important to go deep in one topic, but it is also really important to learn other things, because at the end of the day, you are going to experience problems that some people have never experienced. You're going to learn things that some people have never learned, and if you just stay in the realm of what your niche is, that's where things get kind of hairy. There's going to be a lot of Jonah Berger. This is Invisible Influence by Jonah Berger. Why do I love this book? Because this talks a lot about influence. And if you work in sales, marketing, content creation, any sort of business, you're going to learn a lot about influence. The way he talks about influence and how psychology and behavioral economics and all of that works matters. This is a book I wish I would have read. If you have imposter syndrome, this is going to be the best book for you, because it really goes through what imposter syndrome is, why does it come up, how do you get through it. And this one talks specifically to women, but I think this would also apply to men who have imposter syndrome, or if you're non-binary, or if you don't identify as a woman, because I have a bunch of little tabbies on these books because I refer back to them. That's why they're all color-coded, is I know what the covers look like. I don't always remember the author. But I have tabbies in this because these are things that I love to come back to. And this is from the book. As the expert, you can still value the importance of knowledge, but ditch the unrealistic expectation that you should know it all. It's things like this that I come back to because books are reference points. That's something I learned from Ryan Holiday. I'm going to grab a stack and just rapid fire them off. Rising Strong by Brené was one of the best books I ever read. And this talks about how living a brave life is not always easy, and sometimes it's going to be hard. The New Psychology of Winning by Denis Waitley. I've read The Psychology of Winning by Denis Waitley so many times, but this was updated for the digital era. This is a book I come back to over and over. Winning Her Business by Bridget Brennan, I feel is a sequel to Why She Buys. I love this one because it talks more about how you can be a growth marketer, and if you really market to anybody, this is going to be important. Another Brené Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. This talks about vulnerability, courage, worthiness. The Launch Formula by Jeff Walker. There is an updated version of this one. I don't think this is the updated version. Jeff Walker is a genius, and this is where I learned a lot of starting sales psychology. The Power of Giving Away the Power, the best book I've ever read about leadership. Leadership is not about control. It is about allowing people to do what they want. The Cold Start Problem by Chen. This one talks about growth in a very technical way, and as an entrepreneur, you probably need to read this to understand. This was one of the first books I read by John Maxwell, talking about how to push yourself in personal and corporate growth. A lot of his books have the same kind of stories, but this one was a really good one. The Science is Stuck by Britt. She has another book that just recently came out. I can't remember what it's called, but I'll put it on the screen. This one is for you if you are stuck. If you are in your flop era, this one's going to be for you. Now that we're getting further down into the smaller sections, I'm just grabbing them. Start with Why by Sinek. This one talks about this concept of the what, why, and how is something you have to learn as a marketer. Her research on vulnerability, courage, worthiness is really important. Brené Brown is a white woman. I'm a white woman. Learning about diversity and inclusion and equity and racism and all these other things, you have to also look at other lenses of it. While I will recommend a lot of Brené Brown, my goal with reading is also to read a wide variety. So not just men who are white. I love Maxwell. I love Ryan Holiday. But reading Asian American men, reading Asian American women, reading people who don't identify as women, it is important to get different viewpoints. So, Atlas of the Heart. This is a beautiful book, and this goes through a lot of emotions, and this is something I love to come back to because it explains how the book is done. There are two types of books in my mind. There are books for reading, and there are books for referencing. This one, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This has been updated. The thing that I take away from this is if you want people to be interested in you, you have to be interested in them. Persuasion by Robert B. Cialdini. Influence. This is one of the best books to understand communication and framing. Little Black Stretching Pants. I don't think this is in print anymore. This is about Chip Wilson and Lululemon, and the reason why I love this book is it is also like Shoe Dog by Philip Knight, Little Black Stretchy Pants. These men had no clue what they were doing, but they built billion-dollar empires. And that means you don't always have to know what you're doing. Wise Shoe Buys by Brennan. This is the gateway drug into learning sales psychology. I read this book and I loved it. I think Brennan is genius. This is Burnout. And the most important part of this book taught me about burnout, stress cycles, and if you are an entrepreneur and you don't understand a stress cycle, you are going to understand why all of us work out, because burnout is not a rite of passage, and I see so many entrepreneurs who burnt out because they didn't understand it. Permission Marketing by Seth. Ask people, ask permission, be conscious of consent. Creative Selection. This book changed the way I thought about so many things. And it is the design process of how they made the iPhone. I'm literally recording this on the No BS Small Business book by Casey Graham. I knew somebody who is a good friend of Casey Graham, and that's why I got this. Casey tells the story about his own grandfather losing his life because of small business. And this is someone that I would love to sit down and have a conversation with. I love this book because it goes into what do you want out of your business. Deep Work by Cal Newport. I listened to this one. I did not read this one, but this one is one I come back to often because if you want to be the best at what you do, you need time and focus, and you need to understand what you don't need to focus on. This is one of the best behavioral science books I've ever read, and it is using behavioral science and marketing. I have this physical copy. I have a copy on my Kindle. For something like sales psychology, behavioral economics, behavioral science, she goes really in depth. This reads more like a textbook than like a fun book you read. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. This talks about negotiation and how to communicate. 90% of what you do as a business owner is communicating. You are always selling, and you should learn to sell better. Contagious by Jonah Berger. This is about what catches on and what doesn't. And I love his quote in this book specifically: small controversies are better than large controversies, and people want to have an opinion on things. I'm going to have an unpopular opinion. This is Influence by Robert B. Cialdini. I had my original copy of Influence. This one is just so much bigger, and I don't enjoy how much more he's added onto this. Brag Better by Meredith Feynman is one of the best books as a female you will ever read because it will teach you how to talk about yourself and how to view yourself. Built to Last. This is a cult classic because it teaches you about businesses that last and businesses that do not. And this is something that I would actually love to see an updated version from him because so many things have gone out of business. The E-Myth Revisited. I also have a copy of this that is like the whole honker. This is going to teach you how not to be an owner-operator. This does not apply as much to the online space unless you're using a build-to-sell concept. Essentialism, and these are the same books written by two different people with the same concept. How to focus on the things that matter. Should you read both? Yes. Is it repetitive? Yes. But what is your one thing? What are you going to focus on and allow it to grow? This is the sequel to Essentialism, and this one is better for life admin and managing your whole life. This one also helped me start thinking about my business beyond getting through the next month, getting through the next year, and how do I make it easier for myself? How to Change. This is a behavioral scientist who talks about positive change and habit change. The Power of Habit is not on my bookshelf, and it is not in my library because I think that is a bullshit book about habits. Also notice that I did not include Atomic Habits. I do own Atomic Habits somewhere. Yeah, it's down there. Atomic Habits is really good, but when you start really getting into behavior change, it's going to be different. Grit by Angela Duckworth. Grit is so interesting because it is a psychological phenomenon and it is basically resilient. And how can you be more resilient as a business owner? I have almost all of Malcolm Gladwell's books right here. It's going to be a hit or miss when it comes to him. Sometimes he's a hit, sometimes he's a miss. It really is hard for me to sit here and be like, you have to read all of them. And it's also hard for me to say you don't have to read all of them. Okay, some more non-traditional ones. Cultish talks about the language of fascism, and sometimes online can be a cult, so protect yourself. High Performing Habits by Brennan Burchard. Do I think he's actively working on something? No. But this one is really good about how do you become a high performer in a world that is glamorizing soft life. Biased. This one is not a book you read. This is a reference book. Why do I say this is a reference book is because it literally is a confirmation bias after I literally just talk about cults. Questions That Sell, one of the best books by Paul Cherry that breaks down so many questions. If you read one book out of this entire list and you want to learn more about sales, okay, two books. It is these: Fanatical Prospecting and Sales EQ. Why? The way this man approaches sales is how sales should be done. Fanatical Prospecting, this is why most people fail, is they don't understand how to prospect, and it took me so long to read this book. This is how to manage your emotions while you're selling. If you notice, both of them have so many tabbies, and it's because it teaches a lot about sales without being like, this is exactly how you should sell and do those types of things. Those books have heavily influenced me as I have built my business, and Fanatical Prospecting is one I come back to on a regular basis. I have given you so many books that you can go out and read. What I will say to close out this video is listening is still reading. If you are somebody who hasn't read a book and you want to run a business, please start. YouTube is really great for learning, but there is nothing that is going to grow you more than reading a book and knowing how to tangibly use it. If there's any books I did not mention that you would love for me to read, review, give my opinions on, put them in the comments. If there are any videos you want to see from me, put in the comments down below. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will see you in the next video.